Welcome to Watercolor by Scarlett. So today I decided to do a little sketch. This is my dear little Bruno. If you follow my channel or any of my channels, you probably know that I have goats. This is my baby goat. Now he's not a baby anymore. He's 10 months old at the moment. And today, actually, he's at the hospital, the animal hospital on Lake Ontario. He had a rupture in his bladder. 3, actually. It ruptured in 3 separate places. And he had 5 liters of urine in his abdomen. So he's not doing so well. But he's at the hospital and they've performed the surgery. They have repaired his abdomen. They've repaired his bladder. And they've drained him, and they've got him on IV, and they're fixing him. And he's in recovery, and he seems to be good. He's standing. I think he's awake now. It took a while to wake up, but he's awake now. So we're not out of the dark, or we're not out of the woods. He still has a long way to go recovery-wise. He's got a catheter, and he'll have many more vet visits, but hopefully not at the hospital. Instead, our friendly goat, our friendly vet will be coming here to the house again, and not that we have to drive hours to take him to a specialty hospital for large animals. Anyway, so yeah, I've done a few blog posts about this, and I put some pictures on Facebook about it, and while it was happening, it's been going on for the last 10 days. It's been extremely traumatic, to say the least. Bruno is a bottle baby. So I got him when he was 3 days old. And he, 3 days old, he was on a bottle. He was actually abandoned by his mother. He was rejected. He was one of 2, so he's a twin. And what typically happens when you have twins is that they reject the smaller one, or sometimes they reject the males. And he was the smaller one, and he was male. So he was rejected by his mum, and I overheard someone talking about him, and I said, "What? You've got a goat? And he's how old? And I want to come see him." And I took my husband, who had very little warning that we were going to acquire a little baby goat, and I pretty much walked in the house and walked out with the goat. He was adorable. He was super, super tiny. His whole body was about 30 centimeters in length. And he didn't have any horns. And in this little sketch, he has itty bitty little horns. They're no more than about 1 inch large. And I think at this time, this was maybe March of this year when this is a photograph that I took. These are my rabbits. This was Beatrice and Ivan and Bruno. And this really happened. There is a photo of this happening, which is where this whole image is based off of. They're sitting on the mats at the front door. And Bruno was very inquisitive about the rabbits. So, and they were inquisitive about him. They were only 6 months old too, so we're all little babies. Yeah, what else should I tell you about it? So he was super tiny. He is a bottle baby, so that means that every day he got a bottle multiple times a day. I would wake up in the middle of the night. He slept in the house. In fact, he slept in the house till about 3 weeks ago when he was 9 months old or something. He just finished building his barn, and he and Bella just moved out to the barn. So there's been lots of changes. In fact, that is part of why he got sick in the first place. He was inside and had nice warm water and all the hay he could eat and a certain amount of grain that I thought was appropriate for him, because that's what all the books say and that's what everybody I spoke to says. Well, it turns out that goats should not eat grain at all unless you're trying to fatten them up for a slaughter. But in his case, he's a pet goat, and boar goats are particularly susceptible to having crystals in their bladder, in their insides, like gallstones or urethra stone, all these different places, right, where you can get stones. So they're pretty susceptible to this, but these goats are typically raised as meat goats, and they're typically slaughtered Are you still recording? Oh, good. It typically is slaughtered about 4 to 6 months old, and the stones normally don't show up until much later. So if you're raising them as a pet or as a goat, maybe for breeding stock, you want to keep them long term, the best thing is to give them as little grain as possible. But all the research I did, and oh my goodness, did I do a lot of research, because I've been planning on getting goats for years. All the research I did said feed them grain. Well, now I've learned that you don't want to feed goats grain. You want to only feed them hay and let them forage on the forest and everything that's outside. And the other thing, the second problem, is that he stopped drinking water. So it's been getting a little chilly outside. He's used to his nice warm water inside. And when he moved outside, he still had nice warm water because the weather was lovely. And then all of a sudden the weather changed and the water got cold. And a mixture of him eating the wrong food and having too much potassium and other things in his system, and also not drinking enough water, so his urine was getting too concentrated, and then that led to stones developing, which led to blockage, which eventually led to the bladder swelling and pushing out on all sides, which eventually led to the bladder ripping in 3 places, and it's been an incredible ride. I have to say, this is just, I've never quite had an experience like this. I don't have children, and I'm sure having a sick child may be similar. Now, this might be similar to, say, having a child who has pneumonia, not a child that's deathly ill. Although Bruno is deathly ill, and he is my baby, so in that case, it's somewhat similar, I guess. It's very scary, and certainly worrisome. What is going to happen, and what do you do, and where do you go, and, you know, a million lovely questions. But he is at the hospital, and hopefully he will be coming home tomorrow or the day after, because his surgery now is done, and they're just going to watch him and keep him on fluids and make sure that they can drain his bladder and get his whole, and start his stomach, which is a whole other problem, because he wasn't eating for so long. His stomach actually stopped working, and which is like, it's a different form of bloat. So for this particular picture, I'm going to do a little bit of whites here for some highlights. So I guess I should tell you a little bit about the painting and not so much about the goat now. I used Payne's Gray, Natural Tint, Rose d'Or for my little bunny there, for Beatrice's ear, and some Cerulean Blue, a mixture of Cerulean Blue and Payne's Gray for Beatrice's body. And I think Ivan's body has a little bit more neutral, or neutral tint in there. I've gone over the eyes a few times. This picture is really, really tiny, and the reference was very tiny, and the reference was really dark, so that made it a little frustrating. So I had to kind of guess on a few things, but I wanted to get these highlights in here. I went back and forth. I wasn't sure what I was doing in the beginning and how much highlights I would need to put in, so I didn't put masking fluid or anything first. So I thought I'm going to go with white ink. This is Winsor & Newton white ink. It's just 974 is the number, Winsor & Newton ink white. And I went with using that, and then coming back with a damp brush, I gently lifted the ink off again in order to get those lines super, super small. So I hope you like this, and I hope to see you tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Toodaloo.